The issues of police and community is one part of a broader set of issues.
Yes. Yes.
Our children need to be properly educated.
Yes.
They need to be trained in certain areas so they can get jobs,
Yes.
so they can be functional.
A Fox News alert, Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings speaking out after 6 officers were charged in the death of Freddie Gray. But our next guest says Cummings and other black leaders are part of a bigger problem African-American communities are facing. Joining us now is Fox News contributor and author of Blacklash, Deneen Borelli. Okay, we hear this all the time, and obviously it's something that we're accustomed to hearing. Where is Representative Cummings coming up short?
Everywhere. Listen, he's been in office over 20 years in a community that is over 60% black. You have individuals, Charles, who are not passing in school, poor reading skills, poor math skills. It's on average like $18,000 to educate these kids. So it's all words. He's been there for many, many years, and the problems have gotten worse.
Right.
What these communities need are positive incentives for good education, quality schools, and job opportunities in those communities.
And to your point, I want to share with the audience just some of the statistical stuff. You mentioned the 63% population there in Baltimore is black. Here's one of the startling things. 90% of the homicide victims are black, but so are 90% of the suspects. I know I pulled up the list of the last 100 murder victims in Baltimore, and 89 were blacks. So what bothers me the most with all of this, Deneen, is it's always the world. President Obama sort of said the same thing when he talked about Baltimore this year. It's always the rest of the nation that's letting down black Americans. I don't hear any of these guys talking about the role that black Americans owe themselves to improve their condition.
You just mentioned some startling statistics. With Representative Cummings, Charles, he's more concerned about climate change legislation. How twisted is this? With those numbers, those staggering numbers in Baltimore, he's more concerned about climate change regulations. He is on board with Obama's failed energy policy, which, by the way, is going to harm black Americans, where you have higher unemployment, double digits, lower average incomes, and when you're paying more for energy, that's less disposable income for those families.
Here's the thing also, though. When at some point, Baltimore has, they probably have, they're at least in the top 5 per pupil spending in schools. So we blame it on the schools, we blame it on society, we blame it on the lack of jobs. But if you don't qualify for these jobs, you simply cannot get these jobs.
Sure.
When do we break this cycle? When do we get somewhere where we start to say, okay, let's maybe try a different approach?
Yeah.
Because the trillions that have been spent on this great society thing has not worked.
Well, the progressive policies have failed for many, many years in these urban communities. What incentives do businesses have to come into those communities to provide jobs and provide training? The incentives are not there. Plus, the regulations are harmful as well. So we need less regulations, lower taxes to provide the incentives for businesses to come into these communities and stay there. Is CVS going to go back to Baltimore? I don't think so.
Yeah, also empowerment zones and things like that typically create amazing tax breaks. But when those businesses come in, they need engineers. They don't care what color you are.
Absolutely.
Deneen, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Deneen Borelli.